has two introductions. The original video was meant to be something else, but I got a little cocky, and this is the prime example of what happens to me when I get cocky. So let's check out the video that was meant to be, and then we come back to this video. Welcome to today's episode of Naughty Nut. On today's episode of Naughty Nut, we're gonna do burnouts. Now, burnout is the dumbest, stupidest, and most useless thing you can do in a car. It requires no skill, it requires no talent. Even a monkey can do it. And since we have disconnected our rear brakes from the foot brake, that is, if I press the, sorry for the mess, if I press the brake pedal, only the front brake will be engaged, because we've disconnected the foot brake with the rear brakes, and when we operate our handbrake is when only the rear brakes will operate. That is, the rear wheels will brake. So since we have that privilege, it's gonna be even easier to do a burnout. But before we get there, let's comment on the comments. So we have a question from Northake Guy 47. He asks, hey man, why wouldn't you drift the Gypsy instead? It's a rear wheel drive and also is used for rally. Lower the suspension to reduce the body roll and you are good to go. Anyways, best of luck to you, brother. That's a very good question. Now, as you mentioned, Gypsy is a tall car. That means the center of gravity is quite high. And because of that, there are risks of the car rolling over. Now, as you mentioned, we could lower the suspension, but unfortunately, the Gypsy uses a leaf spring suspension. With a leaf spring suspension, you can't lower the car as much. And even if you do, a leaf spring suspension is quite an outdated and old suspension system. Moreover, the Gypsy uses a solid axle in the back as well as in the front. Now, in the back, it's okay. But in the front, because it's a solid axle, we can't play around with the suspension geometry in the front a lot. Now, as you saw in the last video, we played around with the suspension geometry that gave us the feel of the car the way we wanted it. In future, I want to add more steering angle and also play around with the camber and caster angles further. And all that wouldn't have been possible with the solid axle in the front. Thank you Nahan and Sirmur, sending me love all the way from Himachal Pradesh. And thank you all for your lovely comments. Sunflowers sends me love all the time. And a lot of you are requesting to install a turbo. Yes, that's coming for sure, but first we're going to explore more cost-effective ways to increase the power and performance of the car. Now back to the video where we were meant to do burnouts, but it didn't go according to the plan. We put some water on the rear wheels so it is easier for the car to break traction. Now at this point, the car is already overheating and it's backfiring. Listen to the backfires carefully. Now the car is really losing power and it can hardly hold idle. But still, we try one more time. tried to revive the car but failed to do so. मारना भाई बराबर मारता है चलो Now, as you saw in the video, the car was losing power and then it just died completely. It just won't start again. So one issue was overheating. The fans weren't coming on, and one reason is that the temperature sensor we have over here is just not supplying enough current to the relay that operates the fan in the back. Now when I take the temperature sensor off, and if I bridge these terminals, that is, if I close the circuit with a wire, then the relay operates perfectly. So that means the temperature sensor is not sending enough current to the relays, and hence that's why the relays are not coming on. So we have to fix this issue by maybe installing a digital temperature sensor that would operate the relays digitally. So we can set the temperature on the digital temperature sensors, and then it would operate the relays accordingly. Moving on, we're gonna inspect why the car just won't start. So the first thing you do is check the spark plugs. So we're just gonna check the spark plugs over here. I've got the coil bolts already undone, and we're gonna check the spark plug one by one. So we're just taking off number one spark plug right now. I haven't touched this car since it stopped running. So whatever we find out, we're gonna find it out together. So this is gonna be our number one spark plug. That's number 2, 3, 4. This spark plug looks decent. It looks like really clean. This spark plug looks really clean. Now it's not supposed to look like this. That means this has water in the system. That is water in the cylinder head, which is not a good sign. That's number one. We're gonna go on to number 2. Let's see what surprises we have over there. Same story over here. As you can see, there is some oil some oil and I think it's watering over here. We'll go on to number 3. As you can see, the spark plugs are way too clean. This means that there is some kind of water or something that is flushing the cylinder heads. Because of that, it's taking away all the carbon that's supposed to be on the spark plug. But as you can see, we don't see anything. It's just like, someone just washed it. That means, there must be water in the system. Upon inspecting the coolant overflow tank and the radiator, we found some oil along with the coolant. That means the head gasket is surely gone. Well, we'll figure that out later, but right now we're just going to do a compression test. So we have a compression gauge that is attached to cylinder number 1. We're just going to crank the engine and see how much PSI we get. So usually we should get somewhere around 170 to 200 PSI. So let's just crank the engine and see, if the compression is okay. As you saw, our spark plugs were really clean. That means there is water getting into the cylinders. Second, we checked the compression of the engine. Now the compression of few of the cylinders is perfect, but we found out that it's just doing 175 psi. So that means we're still good for few thousand kilometers before we really have to rebuild the engine. But as of now, we have to open the head and check out the head gasket. Now this is expected as this is a junkyard engine. Now all we did was just put new oil in it, put new spark plugs in, put new coil plugs on it, and that's all we did to this engine. But this needs a proper overhauling in the future anyways. So I was expecting this anyways, but we still have a few thousand kilometers before we have to rebuild the engines. That's it for this episode. I'll see you in the next one.
Are you mad? I got a bag, bro. Name hot in these streets, no Tabasco. But I'm so stubbed, that's a fact, yo. And if you think I'm frontin', you can run it back, yo. Go on, run it back. You know that I run it. Everything you wanna do, I already done it. And I got your little boo telling me she love me. I got this one, that one. Damn, it's gonna be a long night.